Spitfire is falling, not diving, falling. The engine is screaming a redline, the airframe shuddering so violently that the instrument panel blurs into a smear of white needles and black dials. Outside the canopy, the sky has become a carousel of gray cloud and green earth, spinning faster than thought, faster than breath. Tracer rounds slice past the wingtips in glowing arcs, each one close enough to feel, close enough to smell the phosphorus burn in the thin air at 18,000 feet. Flight Lieutenant Daniel Ashford can hear his own breathing inside the oxygen mask. It is loud, mechanical, the only sound that feels real. 10 Messerschmitt 109s are on him. 10. They came out of the sun 40 seconds ago, a textbook bounce, and now they own the sky. 4 are directly behind him, stacked vertically, taking turns to fire. 3 more are climbing to cut off his escape. The rest are circling wide, patient, professional, waiting for him to make the mistake every panicked pilot makes. Pull too hard, stall, die. Ashford's hands are steady on the stick. His squadron leader told him once that he thought too much, that he spent too much time with his head in notebooks and not enough time trusting his instincts. The other pilots laughed when they saw him scribbling diagrams in the mess tent, calculating angles and energy states like he was preparing for an exam instead of a war. They called him the librarian. They said you can't outsmart a bullet. They were wrong. What happens in the next 90 seconds will be studied in fighter tactics courses for the next 50 years. But right now, in this moment, with cannon shells punching through his port wing and hydraulic fluid misting across the windscreen, Daniel Ashford is 3 seconds from death, and he is about to do the one thing every manual, every instructor, every combat veteran has told him never to do. He is about to slow down. If you want more true stories of impossible moments from World War II, subscribe to the channel. The date is April 22nd, 1943. The place is the airspace above the coastal corridor between Calais and Dunkirk, a stretch of sky the RAF calls the shooting gallery. It is aptly named. More Spitfires have been lost here in the past 6 months than over any other sector of occupied France. The Luftwaffe knows the routes. They know the altitudes. They know exactly when the escort fighters will be low on fuel and desperate to turn for home. Today's mission is a bomber escort. 12 Lancasters tasked with hitting a rail junction 20 miles inland. The fighters, 8 Spitfires from 403 Squadron, are supposed to keep the Messerschmitts off their backs long enough for the bombs to fall. It is a simple mission, routine even, except the Lancasters are already gone. The formation was broken up 12 minutes ago by a swarm of 109s that came in low and fast, vectored in by ground radar with surgical precision. The bombers scattered. 2 went down in flames before they could even jettison their loads. The rest turned back for the coast, trailing smoke and praying their engines held. The Spitfire pilots did what they could, but they were outnumbered 3-1, and within minutes the neat finger 4 formations dissolved into a dozen separate dogfights, each one a private war fought in 3 dimensions at 300 miles per hour. Now Ashford is alone. He lost sight of his wingman 2 minutes ago. The radio is a chaos of shouted warnings and static bursts. None of it useful, none of it for him. He knows the rest of the squadron is either dead, running, or too deep in their own fights to help. The fuel gauge is nudging the red. The channel is 30 miles behind him. Home is a memory, and the Germans are very, very good. Daniel Ashford grew up in a village in Nottinghamshire, so small it didn't have a name on most maps. His father was a schoolteacher. His mother kept bees. He was an only child, quiet, curious, the kind of boy who spent Sunday afternoons taking apart clocks to see how they worked. He read everything he could find: engineering manuals, aviation journals, translated treatises on aerodynamics smuggled back from German universities before the war. By the time he was 16, he could calculate the lift coefficient of a wing by hand. By 18, he could tell you why a Spitfire could outturn a Messerschmitt in a horizontal fight, but lose in a vertical one. He joined the RAF in 1940, 3 months after Dunkirk. He expected to be welcomed. He was not. Flight training revealed a problem. Ashford was technically flawless. His instrument work was perfect. His navigation was immaculate. His gunnery scores were average, but consistent. But in the air, under pressure, he hesitated. Not out of fear. His instructors were clear on that, but out of thought. He processed. He calculated. He looked for the optimal solution when his classmates were already firing. One instructor wrote in his file, "Flies like he's solving an equation. Will get himself killed." He graduated. Barely. He was assigned to a frontline squadron in early 1942, just in time for the air war over France to become a meat grinder. The other pilots were friendly enough, but wary. They had seen bookish types before. Most of them died in their first 5 sorties. Ashford survived his first 10, then 20, then 30. Not through brilliance, through caution. He stayed on the edges of fights. He picked his moments. He didn't take risks. His kill tally remained at 0. The mockery was gentle at first, then less so. Still taking notes, librarian? You planning to bore the Jerrys to death? Maybe if you write a strongly worded letter, they'll surrender. Ashford didn't argue. He kept his head down, and he kept writing. The notebook was small, bound in leather, pocket-sized. He carried it everywhere. Inside were diagrams, energy curves, turn radii, stall speeds at different weights and altitudes. He sketched out scenarios. What happens if you reverse into a scissor at low speed? What if you force an overshoot by bleeding energy deliberately? What if you make the enemy think you're out of options when you're not? The other pilots thought it was a crutch, a way to avoid the chaos of real combat by pretending it could be controlled. They didn't understand. Ashford wasn't trying to control chaos. He was trying to predict it. The tactical problem was simple. German fighter Doctrine in 1943 was built around energy advantage. The Messerschmitt 109, particularly the Gustav variant, was faster in a dive and had better high-altitude performance than the Spitfire Mark V. Luftwaffe pilots were trained to attack from above, use gravity and speed to close the distance, fire a burst, then zoom back up to altitude before the British could react. It was called boom and zoom. And it worked. The RAF's counter-doctrine was equally simple, turn. A Spitfire couldn't outclimb a 109, but it could outturn one. So the standard defensive maneuver was a hard break into the attack, forced the German into a turning fight, and used the Spitfire's superior turn rate to get onto his tail. If you could survive the first pass, you could win the fight. But there was a problem. It only worked if you saw the attack coming. And it only worked if the enemy was alone. If you were bounced by multiple aircraft, already low on energy, already defensive, turning only bought you a few seconds. The Germans knew this. They hunted in pairs. One would bait the turn. The other would wait, high and patient, for the Spitfire to bleed speed in the break. Then he'd dive in and finish it. Ashford had seen it happen a dozen times. He had watched friends die because they did exactly what they were trained to do. So he started thinking about what would happen if you did the opposite. The idea came to him on a night in February, alone in his quarters, staring at his notebook by candlelight. He was sketching out a pursuit curve, trying to understand why Messerschmitts always seemed to overshoot when Spitfires turned hard at low speed. The answer was obvious: energy management. A diving attacker had too much speed to follow a tight turn without either losing sight of the target or pulling so hard he blacked out. But what if you made the overshoot happen deliberately? What if, instead of turning as hard as possible, you turned just hard enough, and then slowed down even more? Not a stall, not a spin, just a calculated, controlled bleed of airspeed, timed perfectly, executed in the exact moment the enemy committed to his firing pass. The attacker would expect you to be fast, or turning. He would set his lead accordingly. But if you were suddenly slower, much slower, his bullets would go wide, and his momentum would carry him past you. Too fast to correct, too committed to abort, and for one brief moment, the predator would become the prey. Ashford wrote it all down. He calculated the speeds. He mapped the angles. He even named it, in pencil, at the top of the page. Forced overshoot via energy denial. He never showed it to anyone. He didn't think anyone would believe him. The combat started 3 minutes ago. Ashford had been flying number 4 in the formation, the tail end Charlie, the most vulnerable position, the one that always gets hit first. When the Messerschmitts came in, he broke left instinctively, pulled hard, felt the G-forces crush him into the seat. He fired a burst at a shadow, missed, rolled inverted to check a 6. That's when he saw them. 10 contacts. Maybe more. Stacked in a climbing spiral. Coordinated, professional. This wasn't an opportunistic bounce. This was a planned kill. His headset crackled. 4 break right. 2 on your 6. The transmission cut off. He broke right. Pulled until the wings groaned. Looked back over his shoulder. The 2 109s were still there, closing. Their noses lit up with muzzle flashes. Cannon rounds walked up toward him, bright and slow, suspended in the air like fireflies. He rolled hard, dove, climbed, reversed. Nothing worked. They were too good. One of them was in perfect firing position now, 200 yards back, slightly high. The textbook setup. Ashford could see the black crosses on the wings. He could see the pilot's helmet through the armored glass. He could see the exact moment the German squeezed the trigger. The cockpit exploded in noise. Metal tore. Glass shattered. Wind screamed through a hole in the canopy the size of a fist. Ashford's left hand was wet. He looked down. Blood. Not his. Hydraulic fluid. The stick felt wrong. Sluggish. Something in the control runs had been severed. He checked the mirror. Still there. All of them. Closer now. He was out of altitude. Out of speed. Out of options. The standard doctrine said to dive for the deck. Use ground clutter to break contact. Hope the Germans didn't follow. But Ashford didn't dive. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out the notebook, flipped it open to the page he had memorized months ago. And then, with 10 Messerschmitts behind him and death 3 seconds away, he did something no pilot in his right mind would ever do. He chopped the throttle. The engine note drops from a scream to a growl. The Spitfire shudders, hesitates, like a horse refusing a jump. The airspeed bleeds away instantly. 280 knots, 260, 240. The nose wants to drop. Ashford holds it level with both hands, fighting the stick, feeling the airframe teeter on the edge of controllability. Behind him, the lead Messerschmitt is closing at over 300 knots. The German pilot sees the Spitfire slow. He sees the nose come up slightly. He thinks engine hit. He thinks kill. He adjusts his gun sight, leads the target by half a wingspan, and fires. 20mm cannon shells rip through the space where Ashford's cockpit was half a second ago. But Ashford is no longer there. The Messerschmitt screams past him, so close that Ashford can see the oil streaks on the underside of the fuselage, can see the pilot's head snap left in confusion. The German pulls up instinctively, trying to climb away. But he's going too fast, pulling too hard. His wings flex. His vision grays. And in that moment of distraction, of overcorrection, he loses sight of the target entirely. Ashford shoves the throttle forward. The Merlin engine roars back to life. The Spitfire lurches forward, accelerating hard. And suddenly Ashford is no longer being chased. He is inside the enemy formation, behind the leader, inside the decision loop. He pulls the trigger. A 2-second burst. 30 rounds. Half of them miss. The other half don't. The Messerschmitt's tail disintegrates. The rudder tears away. The aircraft snaps into a flat spin, tumbling sideways, the pilot already reaching for the canopy release. Ashford doesn't watch him go. He's already moving. The second Messerschmitt is turning back, trying to re-engage, but he's lost energy in the climb, and now he's slow, defensive, exactly where Ashford was 10 seconds ago. Ashford pulls hard into him, cutting inside his turn, closing the distance. The German sees him coming, tries to dive away. Too late. Another burst. This one is longer, more deliberate. Smoke pours from the 109's engine cowling. The propeller stops. The aircraft noses over and begins the long fall toward the fields below. 2 down. 8 to go. The radio explodes with German voices, sharp and fast, coordinating. Ashford doesn't speak German, but he doesn't need to. He knows what they're saying. He knows what they're thinking. They're confused. They had him. They had him cold. And now 2 of their pilots are gone, and the lone Spitfire is still in the air, still fighting, still doing things that don't make sense. Confusion is a weapon. Ashford rolls inverted, pulls through, comes out heading east, back toward France, toward the sun. It's the wrong direction. Every instinct says to run for the coast, but running means showing them your tail. Running means letting them dictate the terms. He climbs instead. The Spitfire claws for altitude, engine straining, wings shaking. He checks his 6. 3 Messerschmitts are following, climbing hard, trying to catch him. The rest are spreading out, setting up for another coordinated attack. They think he's panicking. They think he's making a mistake. He's not. He's buying time. At 15,000 feet, he levels out, throttles back slightly, and waits. The 3 109s are closing fast, eager, angry. They're in a loose Vic formation, not quite line abreast, not quite staggered. It's aggressive, confident, sloppy. Ashford waits until they're 400 yards away. Then he does it again. He cuts the throttle. The Spitfire's nose drops. The airspeed falls. 160 knots. 140. The controls go mushy. The stall warning buffet starts. A gentle shaking that says, "You're out of ideas. You're out of physics. You're about to fall out of the sky." The 3 Messerschmitts surge forward, and then they're past him. All 3. They overshoot so violently that one of them nearly collides with his wingman. Ashford can see the lead pilot's head whipping around, see the panic in his body language. The German tries to throttle back, tries to turn, but he's going too fast, and now he's in front of a Spitfire with a clear deflection shot. Ashford doesn't take it. He lets them go, because he's not trying to win a dogfight. He's trying to survive one. He rams the throttle forward again, rolls hard to the right, and dives. Not toward the ground, toward the gap in their formation, the hole where their coordination used to be. He slips through it like water through fingers, twisting, jinking, never flying straight for more than 3 seconds. Another Messerschmitt dives at him from above. Ashford sees him early, pulls into him, forces him to overshoot. The German tries to follow, pulls too hard, stalls. His aircraft flicks into a spin. He recovers, but he's lost 1,000 feet, and he's no longer a threat. 5 left. No. 6. Ashford's mouth is dry. His hands are shaking now, not from fear, but from adrenaline, from the sustained G-forces, from the simple physical effort of keeping a damaged aircraft in the air while 10 tons of German steel tries to kill him. The hole in the canopy is whistling. The hydraulic fluid is pooling on the floor. The fuel gauge is deep in the red. He has maybe 3 minutes before the engine quits. The Germans know it too. They stop chasing. They stop trying to close. Instead, they spread out, forming a loose cage around him, staying just out of range, pacing him. It's a professional tactic, an execution. They'll follow him until he runs out of fuel, watch him glide down, circle him until he's on the ground or in the water. No risk, no loss, just patience. Ashford scans the horizon. The coast is 12 miles south. Too far. He'll never make it. The cloud layer below is thin, broken, useless for hiding. The sun is high. There's no help coming. The rest of the squadron is either gone or fighting their own battles. He is alone. He looks down at the notebook, still open on his lap, the pages fluttering in the wind from the shattered canopy. The diagrams are smudged now, stained with hydraulic fluid and sweat, but the words are still legible. Forced overshoot via energy denial. He's used it twice. It's kept him alive, but it's not enough. The Messerschmitts aren't chasing anymore. They're hurting, and you can't force an overshoot on an enemy who refuses to commit. He needs something else. He flips the page. The remaining 5 Messerschmitts are pulling away, not retreating, repositioning. They're climbing, reforming, trying to regain the altitude advantage. But they're cautious now, tentative. They've lost 3 aircraft to a lone Spitfire that by all rights should have been dead 4 minutes ago. The math doesn't make sense. The tactics don't make sense. And that hesitation is all Ashford needs. He rolls wings level, points the nose south, and runs. The engine is coughing now, misfiring. The fuel pressure is fluctuating wildly. He can smell burning oil. But the Spitfire is still flying, still responding. He keeps it low, just above the wave tops, where the Germans will have to dive to follow him and risk losing their altitude advantage. They don't follow. He crosses the coast at 2,000 feet, trailing smoke, the engine rattling like a box of nails. The white cliffs of Dover rise up ahead, impossibly beautiful, impossibly close. He can see the radar stations on the hilltops. He can see the barrage balloons floating over the harbor. He's going to make it. The engine seizes. The propeller stops. The sudden silence is louder than the gunfire. Ashford can hear his own heartbeat. He can hear the wind. He can hear the control surfaces creaking as he adjusts the trim for a glide. He's 3 miles from the nearest airfield, RAF Hawkins. He can see the runway. He can see the windsock. He's not going to make it. He aims for the beach instead. The Spitfire comes down hard, wheels up, belly down, skidding across wet sand in a shower of sparks and screaming metal. It spins once, twice, then slews to a stop, nose buried in a dune, tail pointing at the sky. Ashford sits in the cockpit for a long moment, hand still on the stick, breath still loud in his mask. Then he pops the canopy, unbuckles, and climbs out. His legs don't work properly. He falls to his knees in the sand, gasping, shaking. The adrenaline is wearing off now, and everything hurts. His ribs, his hands, his head. But he's alive. A jeep roars up 10 minutes later. 2 RAF ground crew and a medical orderly. They expect to find a body. Instead, they find Ashford sitting on the wing of the wrecked Spitfire, notebook open, writing. "You all right, sir?" One of them asks. Ashford looks up. He blinks. He nods. 10, he says quietly. "Sir, there were 10 of them." The ground crew exchange glances. They think he's in shock. They help him into the jeep, drive him back to Hawkins, hand him over to the medics. The medics check him for wounds, find none, send him to the debriefing officer. The debriefing officer doesn't believe him. 10 enemy aircraft, 3 confirmed destroyed, the rest broken off, single-handed. "Yes, sir." "How?" Ashford reaches into his jacket. He pulls out the notebook. He sets it on the table. "I slowed down." The officer stares at him. "You slowed down?" "Yes, sir." "In the middle of a dogfight?" "Yes, sir." The officer picks up the notebook, flips through it, sees the diagrams, the calculations, the notes. He reads for a long time. Then he looks up at Ashford, and his expression has changed. "Does anyone else know about this?" "No, sir." "They will." "You wrote all this before the fight?" "Months before." "How did you know it would work?" Ashford smiles. "I didn't." 10 Messerschmitts, 1 Spitfire, 1 notebook full of diagrams that everyone said were useless. Daniel Ashford didn't outfly his enemies that day. He outthought them. He turned the thing they mocked into the thing that saved his life. He proved that in the chaos of combat, where reactions are measured in fractions of seconds and mistakes are fatal, the ability to think, to adapt, to see patterns where others see only confusion, is the ultimate weapon. The Germans that day were skilled. They were experienced. They were coordinated. They did everything right. But they couldn't predict what Ashford would do, because Ashford didn't do what anyone else would have done. And that made all the difference. If you enjoy real World War II stories, where skill and courage change history, subscribe for more. The next time someone tells you that you think too much, that you should stop analyzing and just act, remember the Spitfire pilot who carried a notebook into battle and used it to outsmart 10 fighters. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the one you carry in your hands. Sometimes it's the one you carry in your mind.